The luxury research vessel Serene Harmony drifted through space like a crystal palace among the stars. Its walls gleamed with polished metal and soft blue lights. Inside, the most important beings in the galaxy discussed their mission in hushed, respectful voices. Captain Zethai stood at the center of the bridge, his crystal body catching and reflecting the ship's lights. As a Vithani, he was made of living mineral that sparkled like diamonds. His people were known across the galaxy for their wisdom and careful planning. Next to him, Ambassador Quilin floated in her environmental bubble, her ghostly form shifting between blue and silver. The Quillari were energy beings who spoke in musical tones that most other species found beautiful. Near the navigation station, Minister Nextar's amphibious form was kept moist by a gentle mist system. His green skin glistened as he reviewed their diplomatic papers. They were traveling to the Outer Rim territories to survey potential colony worlds. This was important work that would shape the future of the Galactic Council. Everything had been planned perfectly. The ship was the finest vessel the Council could provide, equipped with the most advanced safety systems. The crew was handpicked from the Academy's best graduates. Nothing could go wrong. That's when everything went wrong. The ship's main engine made a sound like breaking glass. Then the lights went out. Emergency power kicked in a moment later, bathing everything in red light. Alarms began screaming in 17 different languages. "Report!" Captain Zethai called out, his crystalline voice echoing through the bridge. "Engine core failure, sir," the navigator said, her voice shaking. "Complete power loss to the main drive systems. We're drifting. How is that possible?" Ambassador Quilin's musical voice had lost its usual calm. "This ship was inspected just last week." The ship's computer spoke in its gentle female voice. "Analysis suggests a cascade failure in the quantum stabilizers. Cause unknown. Estimated repair time with current resources. Impossible." Captain Zethai felt his crystal form grow dim with worry. They were in an uncharted system, far from any major trade routes. The nearest council world was weeks away, even with a working engine. "Send out a distress signal," he ordered. "Standard council emergency frequency. Someone will hear us." The communications officer, a young Quillari named Silana, worked at her console. "Signal sent, Captain." Broadcasting on all standard frequencies. Hours passed. The ship's life support systems hummed quietly, recycling air and maintaining temperature. The passengers tried to stay calm, but everyone knew they were in serious trouble. The Outer Rim was dangerous territory, full of pirates and unexplored hazards. Minister Nextar checked his breathing apparatus nervously. "How long can we survive on emergency power?" 2 weeks. Maybe 3 if we reduce life support to minimum levels, the chief engineer reported. That's when their sensors detected something approaching. "Contact on long-range sensors," Silana announced. "Single vessel, unknown configuration." "They're moving fast." Captain Zethai examined the readings. The approaching ship didn't match any design in the Council database. It was angular and ugly, covered in what looked like patches and repairs. Heat signatures showed energy outputs that made no sense. The power levels were so high they should have melted the ship's hull. "Computer identify vessel type," he commanded. "Unknown design. Hull composition suggests reinforced battle armor. Energy output patterns match. Deathworld registry classifications." The bridge fell silent. Everyone knew about the Deathworld registry. It was a list of planets so dangerous that the Council had marked them as off-limits to most species. Only the most desperate criminals or the completely insane lived on such worlds. "Deathworld?" Ambassador Quilin whispered. "Which one?" The computer paused as if checking its data twice. "Based on engine signatures and hull design, Sol System, 3rd planet, classification, extreme hostile environment. Primary species human." Minister Nextar's skin turned pale green. "Humans? The ones who live on that nightmare world where everything tries to kill them?" Everyone had heard stories about Earth. It was a planet where the weather could kill you, the animals hunted in packs, and the very air was poison to most species. The fact that anything intelligent had evolved there was considered a miracle by xenobiologists. The fact that humans had developed space travel was terrifying. "They're hailing us," Silana reported, her voice very quiet. Captain Zethai straightened his crystalline form. First contact with a new species was always delicate, especially when that species came from a death world. "Put them through." The main screen flickered to life, showing the interior of what looked like a military vessel. But instead of gleaming metal and soft lights, everything was dark gray and functional. A human female appeared on screen. She had brown skin and black hair tied back in a practical style. Her uniform was simple and worn, like she actually worked in it. "This is Captain Elena Rodriguez of the UES Defiant Spirit," she said in accented but clear Galactic standard. "We received your distress signal. Are you in need of assistance?" Captain Zethai tried to maintain his diplomatic composure. "I am Captain Zethai of the Council vessel Serene Harmony. We have suffered complete engine failure and are unable to continue our mission." The human captain nodded. "Understood. We're equipped for emergency repairs. Permission to come alongside and render assistance?" The bridge crew exchanged worried glances. Allowing a Deathworld species aboard their ship violated several safety protocols, but they were stranded and running out of options. "Captain Rodriguez," Zethai said carefully, "while we appreciate your offer, our species have different environmental requirements. I'm not sure our ship is suitable for human occupation." The human woman smiled, showing her predator teeth. "Don't worry about us, Captain. We're pretty adaptable. Been traveling the Outer Rim for months now. Nothing we can't handle." Ambassador Quilin leaned close to Zethai. "Captain, perhaps we should wait for a Council rescue vessel." "The nearest Council ship is 3 weeks away," Zethai replied quietly. "We may not have that long." Captain Rodriguez seemed to understand their hesitation. "Look, I know humans have a reputation out here. We come from a rough neighborhood. But we're merchants and explorers, not pirates. We help people who are in trouble. It's just what we do." There was something in her voice that made Zethai believe her. Despite her terrifying origin, she sounded sincere. More than that, she sounded competent. "Very well, Captain Rodriguez. Permission granted to dock and assist with repairs." The human ship approached with movements that seemed impossible. It spun and twisted through space in ways that should have liquefied any crew inside. When it finally locked onto their docking port, the connection was so gentle they barely felt it. Through the viewports, they could see human crew members moving around in their ship. They wore simple work clothes and moved with casual confidence. One of them was drinking something from a steaming cup while walking past a radiation warning sign. "Docking complete," Silana reported. "They're requesting permission to board." Captain Zethai took a deep breath of his ship's perfectly filtered air. "Grant permission. And activate all recording systems. The Council will want a complete record of this encounter." The airlock cycled open and humanity stepped aboard their ship. The first thing Captain Zethai noticed about the humans was how they moved. While his crew stood back respectfully, the humans walked through the airlock like they owned the place. They didn't huddle together or look around nervously. They just strode forward with the confidence of apex predators. Captain Rodriguez led the group, followed by 2 other humans. One was a tall male with dark skin and gentle eyes who carried a toolbox that looked like it could repair a space station. The other was an Asian female with quick, intelligent movements who kept scanning everything with some kind of handheld device. "Captain Zethai," Rodriguez said, extending her hand in what the database said was a human greeting gesture. "Good to meet you in person." Zethai carefully touched her hand with one crystalline finger. The human's skin was warm and soft, but he could sense the strength underneath. These beings were built for physical work in ways that most galactic species had evolved past millions of years ago. "This is Chief Engineer Marcus Chen," Rodriguez said, indicating the tall male, "best engine doctor in the Outer Rim. And Dr. Yuki Tanaka, our science officer and general problem solver." Engineer Chen smiled, showing those predator teeth that made Minister Nextar step backward. "Don't worry, folks. We'll have you running again in no time. Mind if we take a look at your engine room?" "Of course," Zethai said, though he noticed his crew was giving the humans a wide berth. "But I should warn you, our environmental systems may not be suitable for your species. The temperature and atmosphere." Dr. Tanaka laughed, a sound like musical bells. "Oh, this is perfect. Nice and cool, plenty of oxygen. Very comfortable." The Vithani captain stared at her. The ship's atmosphere was kept at a temperature that most species considered barely warm enough to survive. The oxygen content was standard for most races, but humans came from a world where the air was 21% oxygen. That was considered toxic by galactic standards. As they walked toward the engine room, Engineer Chen pulled out tools that looked more like weapons than repair equipment. Everything was heavy and practical, built to work in conditions that would destroy delicate galactic technology. So what seems to be the problem? Chen asked as they entered the engine room. The ship's chief engineer, a nervous Kilari named Polmant, floated forward in his environmental sphere. Complete cascade failure in the quantum stabilizers. The computer says it's impossible to repair without returning to a council shipyard. Chen knelt down next to the massive engine assembly and started pulling panels open with his bare hands. Panels that were supposed to require special tools and safety protocols. Well, there's your problem right there. He pointed to a component that looked perfectly fine to everyone else. See this coupling? It's been vibrating loose for weeks. Put stress on the whole system until something had to give. Dr. Tanaka was scanning the engine with her device. Marcus is right. I'm reading microfractures all through the stabilizer housing, but it's fixable. Pullman's voice went up several octaves. The quantum field generators are completely destabilized. The safety interlocks won't even allow the system to start. Oh, safety interlocks, Chen said like he was talking about a minor inconvenience. Yeah, we'll need to bypass those. The alien engineers looked horrified. Bypass the safety systems? That's incredibly dangerous. Chen was already pulling components out of the engine that were clearly labeled as requiring specialized handling equipment. Don't worry, we do this kind of thing all the time. Dr. Tanaka, hand me that plasma torch. The humans worked for 3 hours while the alien crew watched in fascination and terror. They opened panels that were supposed to be permanently sealed. They rewired systems while the power was still on. When a coolant leak started spraying toxic vapor everywhere, they just worked around it while breathing the fumes that would have killed most species. At one point, Engineer Chen stuck his entire arm into a maintenance shaft that was clearly marked with radiation warnings. When Minister Nextar pointed this out, Chen just shrugged. It's not that bad, he said. I'll take some vitamins later. Dr. Tanaka was rebuilding a control circuit with spare parts from her kit. This is actually pretty relaxing compared to our usual runs. Last month we got caught in a solar storm and had to repair our hull while riding the magnetic field lines. Ambassador Quilin floated closer, her energy form flickering with curiosity. How is that possible? Solar storms are lethal to most technology. Oh, they're definitely dangerous, Tanaka agreed cheerfully. But if you know what you're doing, you can use the magnetic fields to boost your speed. Cut 3 days off our travel time. Of course, we had to replace most of our electronics afterward, but totally worth it. The aliens exchanged glances. These humans talked about surviving impossible conditions like other species discussed the weather. That's when the hull breach happened. A stress fracture that had been building for days finally gave way. Alarms screamed as atmosphere began venting into space. The section they were in began losing pressure fast. The alien crew immediately began emergency protocols, sealing blast doors and evacuating to safe areas. But the humans just looked annoyed, really, Chen said, like the vacuum of space was personally inconveniencing him, right when we were making progress. Dr. Tanaka was already pulling something out of her kit. I got this. Emergency hull sealant. Marcus, hold this patch in place. What happened next violated every safety regulation in the Galactic database. Engineer Chen grabbed a metal plate and pressed it directly against the hull breach, with vacuum trying to suck him into space, while Dr. Tanaka sprayed some kind of foam around the edges that hardened instantly. The hull breach was sealed in less than 2 minutes. Captain Zethai stared at them. How are you alive? You were exposed to vacuum. Chen flexed his hands like they were a little stiff. We had maybe 30 seconds of exposure. No big deal. Standard EVA suits are for extended work in vacuum. Short exposure like that, you just hold your breath and work fast. Dr. Tanaka was already back to working on the engine. One time our airlock got stuck during a meteor shower. Marcus and I spent 6 hours doing external repairs with only basic breathers. Now that was exciting. The repairs continued. Every time something went wrong, the humans just adapted. When a power coupling exploded, they rerouted through backup systems without even slowing down. When the artificial gravity failed in their section, they just kept working while floating in 0G. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of watching humans casually ignore death, Engineer Chen stood up and brushed off his hands. That should do it, he said. Try starting her up. The engine hummed to life with a sound like singing crystal. All the displays showed green across the board. The quantum stabilizers were not only working, they were running more efficiently than before. Impossible, whispered Polmant. The diagnostics show optimal performance levels. Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the communication system. How are we doing down there? All done, Captain, Chen replied. She'll run better than new. Excellent. Why don't you invite our guests over for dinner? I think they could use some real food after this ordeal. The alien crew looked at each other nervously. They had just watched humans perform miracles of engineering, while treating lethal hazards as minor annoyances. The idea of visiting their ship was both terrifying and irresistible. What do you say? Dr. Tanaka asked with that predator smile. Want to see how Deathworlders live? The airlock between the two ships felt like crossing into another universe. On one side was the serene Harmony with its crystal corridors and gentle lighting. On the other side was the human ship Defiant Spirit, and stepping inside was like entering the den of some spacefaring predator. The first thing that hit them was the heat. The humans kept their ship at a temperature that made Ambassador Quilin's energy form flicker with discomfort. Minister Nextar immediately activated his cooling system, but even that could barely keep up. Sorry about the heat, Captain Rodriguez said, noticing their distress. We'll adjust the environmental controls for the dining area. Giuseppe gets cranky when we keep the kitchen too cold. The walls were dark gray metal with exposed pipes and conduits running everywhere. Everything looked functional rather than beautiful. Warning signs in multiple languages, covered panels that probably contained things that could kill most galactic species just by being in the same room. Dr. Tanaka led them through corridors, lined with storage lockers and equipment that looked like it belonged on a warship rather than a merchant vessel. This is our main corridor. We've got crew quarters down that way, cargo bays below, and the good stuff up here. They passed a recreation room where several humans were gathered around a table, laughing and playing some kind of card game. When they saw the alien visitors, they waved cheerfully and went back to their game like hosting creatures from across the galaxy was perfectly normal. How many crew do you have? Captain Zethai asked. 12 on this run, Rodriguez replied. Usually we travel with 8, but we picked up some extra hands at the mining station. Giuseppe's nephew wanted to see the outer rim, and Maria needed transport back to Earth. They reached the dining area, which was a large room with tables bolted to the floor and chairs that looked like they were designed to survive explosions. The environmental controls had been adjusted, making the temperature bearable for the alien guests. A large human male emerged from what had to be the kitchen, wearing an apron that said "Kiss the Cook" in Galactic Standard. He had gray hair and kind eyes, but arms that looked like they could bend steel bars. Our guests, he said in accented Standard with a huge smile. I am Giuseppe Romano, ship's cook and keeper of morale. Please sit. I have prepared a special meal that should be safe for all your species. The alien delegates sat carefully in chairs that were clearly built for human-sized beings. Everything was oversized and heavy, designed for creatures who lived in higher gravity than most civilized worlds. Giuseppe bustled around, setting plates and explaining each dish. This is pasta with a very mild tomato sauce, no spices that should bother you. Here we have roasted vegetables with just a little salt, and this bread is made with grain that grows on 17 different worlds, so it should be familiar. Dr. Tanaka sat down across from them, grinning. Giuseppe is being extra careful tonight. Usually he cooks food that would probably register as chemical weapons on most council worlds. Not chemical weapons, Giuseppe protested, laughing. Just a little flavor. These people, they have no appreciation for good food. They think black pepper is too spicy. Captain Rodriguez joined them, along with Engineer Chen and a few other crew members. As they ate, the conversation flowed surprisingly easily. The humans were curious about galactic politics and trade routes, while the aliens found themselves fascinated by stories of human exploration. So you really traveled through the Nebula of Sorrows? Minister Nextar asked, referring to a region that most species considered completely impassable. Oh, that was beautiful, Dr. Tanaka said, taking a bite of what looked like bread covered in some kind of spread that made the aliens' eyes water just from the smell. The electromagnetic storms were incredible. We got some amazing readings on dark matter interactions. Engineer Chen nodded. Had to reroute power through the secondary systems for 3 days, but totally worth it. Got some great photos, too. Captain Zethai tried the pasta and found it surprisingly mild, though he could taste strange compounds that his people would normally avoid. You speak of dangerous phenomena as if they were tourist attractions. Well, they kind of are, Rodriguez said. I mean, if you know what you're doing and take proper precautions, most dangerous areas are just places with interesting physics. The real trick is understanding what you're dealing with. Giuseppe brought out dessert, which turned out to be some kind of sweet cake with fruit. This is tiramisu, but made with fruits that should be safe for everyone. My grandmother's recipe, adapted for space travel. As they ate, the aliens began to relax. These humans were strange, certainly, and they treated deadly hazards like minor inconveniences. But they were also warm and welcoming in a way that surprised everyone. "Can I ask you something?" Ambassador Quilin said, her musical voice thoughtful. "Your reputation in council space is complicated. Some species are afraid of you." The humans looked at each other and shrugged. "We get that a lot," Rodriguez said. "I think it's because we come from a world that most people can't imagine living on. Everything on Earth is constantly trying to kill you, so we learn to adapt." "But that's just normal for us," Chen added. "We don't think of ourselves as dangerous. We're just people trying to make a living and see the galaxy." Dr. Tanaka leaned forward excitedly. "Did you know that Earth has weather systems that can level cities? And animals that hunt in coordinated packs? And plants that can kill you just by touching them? It's amazing." The alien stared at her. She was describing nightmare scenarios with the enthusiasm of a child talking about her favorite toys. "How do you sleep at night?" Minister Nextar asked weakly. "Usually pretty well," Giuseppe laughed. "Though sometimes the thunderstorms keep me awake. I love listening to the rain." Captain Zethai was beginning to understand something important. These humans weren't violent or aggressive. They were just so adapted to surviving impossible conditions that they had forgotten what normal fear looked like. "What brings you to the Outer Rim?" he asked. "This is dangerous territory even by human standards." "Supply run to the mining station at Kepler 442, Rodriguez explained. "They needed medical supplies and couldn't wait for the regular shipping routes. We were in the neighborhood anyway, so we figured we'd help out." "You traveled through pirate-controlled space to deliver medical supplies?" Ambassador Quilin asked. "Pirates aren't that scary once you know how to deal with them," Chen said. "Most of them are just desperate people trying to survive. You can usually avoid trouble if you're careful." Dr. Tanaka grinned. "And if you can't avoid trouble, well, humans are good at fighting our way out of problems." That's when the ship's communication system crackled to life. A desperate voice speaking in heavily accented galactic standard filled the dining room. "Mayday, Mayday. This is the colony ship New Hope. We are under attack by unknown vessels. Repeat, we are under attack. Our escorts have been destroyed. We have 50,000 civilians aboard. Please, anyone who can hear this, we need help." The transmission cut off, replaced by static. The dining room fell silent. The alien delegates looked at each other with growing horror. 50,000 civilians under attack in pirate space, with no military vessels close enough to help. Captain Rodriguez was already standing up. "Giuseppe, pack up dinner. Looks like we're going to be busy." The humans moved with sudden purpose, their casual demeanor replaced by something that made the aliens' survival instincts scream warnings. In the space of seconds, they had transformed from friendly hosts into something altogether more dangerous. "Captain," Minister Nextar said carefully, "surely you're not planning to engage unknown attackers. You're a merchant vessel." Captain Rodriguez paused at the door and looked back at him. Her smile was still warm, but there was something predatory in her eyes now. "Minister, when someone sends out a distress call, you answer it. That's what civilized people do." As the humans filed out to take battle stations, the alien delegates finally understood why their species feared these Deathworlders. It wasn't because humans were violent or cruel. It was because they were the kind of people who would fly into a battle against impossible odds just because someone needed help. And they would do it with a smile. The bridge of the defiant spirit transformed before the alien delegates' eyes. What had looked like a simple merchant vessel's command center now revealed itself as something far more sophisticated. Hidden panels slid open, revealing weapons controls and tactical displays. Extra stations rose from the floor with the smooth precision of military hardware. Captain Rodriguez stood at the center of it all, no longer the friendly host who had shared dinner with them. Her voice carried the sharp authority of someone used to life and death decisions. "Chen, I need everything you can give me from the engines. Tanaka, start scanning for that distress signal's origin. Giuseppe, secure the galley and get to engineering. Everyone else, battle stations." The alien delegates huddled together near the back of the bridge, watching in fascination as the humans worked. Every movement was precise and purposeful. These people had clearly done this before. "Captain," Minister Nexitar said nervously, "perhaps we should contact the Galactic Defense Force. They have proper military vessels that could handle this situation. Dr. Tanaka looked up from her scanner display. Nearest GDF patrol is 3 days out. That colony ship doesn't have 3 days. But surely a single merchant vessel cannot engage an entire pirate fleet, Ambassador Quilin protested. It would be suicide. Captain Rodriguez glanced at her with that predator smile. Who said anything about a fair fight? The main screen lit up with a tactical display showing the system where the distress call originated. Dr. Tanaka's scans were already painting a picture that made the aliens' crystalline hearts sink. I'm reading multiple vessel signatures, Tanaka reported. At least 8 ships in attack formation around a large civilian transport. Energy signatures match Korthak raider patterns. Captain Zethai felt his crystal form grow dim with worry. The Korthak raiders were notorious throughout the Outer Rim. They were well-armed, ruthless, and had been avoiding the Galactic Defense Force for years. 8 ships, Engineer Chen called from his station. That's all? I was expecting more of a challenge. The alien stared at him. Chen was talking about engaging 8 pirate vessels like he was disappointed there weren't more enemies to fight. Time to intercept? Rodriguez asked. 47 minutes at maximum burn, the helmsman replied. He was a young human with calm eyes who piloted their ship through impossible maneuvers like he was taking a leisurely drive. Do it, and signal the Serene Harmony. Tell them to stay back and observe. This might get messy. As they raced toward the battle, the aliens watched the humans prepare for combat. What they saw challenged everything they thought they knew about civilized behavior. The humans didn't arm themselves with the latest galactic technology or superior firepower. Instead, they used their environment. Dr. Tanaka plotted a course that would take them through an asteroid field that most pilots would consider impassable. Engineer Chen began calculating how to use the system's radiation zones as tactical advantages. Captain, the communications officer reported, I'm picking up transmissions from the raiders. They're demanding the colony ship surrender, or they'll start killing civilians. Rodriguez's expression hardened. How long until they make good on that threat? Based on standard Korthak protocol, maybe 20 minutes. Then we'll just have to be faster than standard. The defiant spirit dropped out of faster than light, travel at the edge of the system, and the tactical situation immediately became clear on the main screen. The colony ship New Hope was a massive, ungainly vessel designed to carry thousands of families to new worlds. It was surrounded by 8 sleek raider ships that looked like mechanical sharks circling wounded prey. Oh no, whispered Minister Nextar as he saw the scope of the problem. The colony ship was huge but helpless. Its escort vessels were burning debris floating in space. The raiders had positioned themselves so that any rescue attempt would have to go through them to reach the civilians. Classic Korthak formation, Dr. Tanaka observed. They're using the colony ship as a shield. Standard tactics would be to negotiate or wait for overwhelming force. Captain Rodriguez studied the display with the focused intensity of a predator planning an attack. Good thing we don't use standard tactics. Chen, what's our radiation situation? We've got a nice solar flare building up on the far side of the system. Should peak in about 15 minutes. Perfect. Tanaka, plot me a course through those asteroids. I want to come at them from the direction they least expect. Ambassador Quilin floated closer to the tactical display. Captain, I must protest. You cannot possibly expect to defeat 8 vessels with superior firepower. This is madness. Maybe, Rodriguez agreed. But it's the kind of madness that saves 50,000 people. The defiant spirit plunged into the asteroid field at speeds that made the alien delegates grab onto whatever they could find. Rocks the size of buildings flashed past the viewports. The ship twisted and spun through gaps that seemed impossibly narrow. The human pilot handled it all with casual expertise, like he was threading a needle while riding a roller coaster. Asteroids are easy, he said cheerfully. At least they don't shoot back. Usually, Chen added from his engineering station. Dr. Tanaka was monitoring the raiders' communications. They've detected us, but they can't get a clear reading through all this rock. They're trying to figure out what we are. Let's introduce ourselves properly, Rodriguez said. Weapons online. That's when the aliens realized they had been completely wrong about the defiant spirit. Hidden weapon ports opened along the hull. What they had taken for cargo pods were actually missile launchers. The innocent-looking sensor arrays were actually targeting systems that could lock onto multiple targets simultaneously. "This is a warship," Captain Zethai said in amazement. "This is a merchant vessel," Rodriguez corrected. "We just happen to trade in dangerous neighborhoods. You learn to be prepared." The ship burst out of the asteroid field like an angry comet, weapons blazing. But instead of engaging the raiders in conventional combat, the humans did something that violated every tactical manual in galactic space. They flew straight through the enemy formation. Missiles and energy beams filled space around them as the Defiant Spirit spun and twisted between the raider ships. Instead of trying to destroy the enemy vessels, the humans were hurting them, forcing them away from the colony ship, using maneuvers that should have been impossible. "What are they doing?" Minister Nextar asked, watching the display in confusion. Dr. Tanaka grinned as she worked her console. "Giving those raiders a choice. Follow us into the radiation zone or let us rescue the civilians." The raiders, faced with a single ship that was somehow outmaneuvering their entire fleet, made the Isai mistake of following the Defiant Spirit toward the system's star, right into the path of the building solar flare that Engineer Chen had detected. "Solar storm impact in 30 seconds, Chen announced. "All hands, prepare for electromagnetic pulse." The humans quickly shut down non-essential systems and switched to hardened backups. The raiders, using standard galactic technology, had no such preparations. When the solar flare hit, half the raider fleet simply stopped working. Their weapons went offline, their engines failed, and their life support systems began struggling with the electromagnetic interference. The Defiant Spirit, built by people who lived on a world where solar storms were just Tuesday afternoon weather, kept fighting. "Now that's more like it," Captain Rodriguez said as her ship tore through the disabled raiders. "Even odds." The remaining raider ships that still had power tried to retreat, but found themselves trapped between the radiation storm and an opponent who seemed to thrive in conditions that crippled everyone else. In the space of 10 minutes, the entire Korthak raider fleet was either destroyed or disabled. The colony ship New Hope was free. As rescue operations began, Captain Zethai stared at the tactical display in amazement. 50,000 lives had been saved by 12 humans in a ship that looked like it was held together with spare parts and determination. "How?" he asked simply. Captain Rodriguez was already coordinating with the colony ship's captain, making sure the civilians were safe and the damaged vessel could make it to port. She looked up at the alien delegates with that same warm smile she had worn at dinner. "We're humans," she said, like that explained everything. "We don't know how to give up." As the Defiant Spirit escorted the colony ship to safety, the alien delegates finally understood what made these Deathworlders so dangerous. It wasn't their weapons or their technology. It was the simple fact that when faced with impossible odds, their first instinct was to find a way to win, and they made it look easy. The rescue operation took 6 hours. The alien delegates watched from the bridge of the Defiant Spirit as the humans coordinated the most complex civilian evacuation they had ever seen. The colony ship New Hope was badly damaged, with hull breaches and failing life support systems. 50,000 Nexari civilians needed immediate medical attention and safe transport. Captain Rodriguez worked with the efficiency of someone who had done this many times before. She split her crew between emergency repairs on the colony ship and setting up temporary medical stations in the Defiant Spirit's cargo bays. Giuseppe Romano had transformed his kitchen into a field hospital, treating injured Nexari with the same care he had shown preparing dinner. Dr. Tanaka moved between the ships like she was born in zero gravity, coordinating with Nexari doctors and adapting human medical equipment for amphibious physiology. Engineer Chen had somehow managed to get the colony ship's engines working again, though Captain Zethai noticed he was using repair techniques that weren't in any textbook. "How many evacuation operations have you conducted?" Ambassador Quilin asked as she watched the humans work. "This year?" Rodriguez replied, checking a status report. "Maybe a dozen. Pirates, equipment failures, natural disasters. The Outer Rim is a dangerous place. Someone has to help." Minister Nextar was studying the tactical display, trying to understand what he had witnessed.
"Captain, that battle..."
"How did you know those maneuvers would work?" Rodriguez paused in her coordination efforts and looked at him. "Experience. Humans have been fighting in impossible conditions for our entire history. We learned a long time ago that the key to winning isn't having better weapons. It's using your environment and refusing to give up. But the risks, Captain HFY protested. One mistake and your entire crew could have been killed. How do you justify that? The human captain's expression grew serious. Captain, I understand your species values careful planning and minimizing risk. Those are good things. But when 50,000 innocent people are about to die, the biggest risk is doing nothing. Dr. Tanaka floated over, her work clothes stained with various fluids from treating injured Nexari. The colony ship's medical bay is overwhelmed. We're going to need to take about 200 of their most serious cases aboard our ship. Do it, Rodriguez said immediately. Clear out Cargo Bay 3 if you need more space. As the evacuation continued, more human vessels began arriving. Word had spread through the merchant networks that people needed help, and ships had diverted from across the sector. Not military vessels or government rescue ships, but merchants, miners, and explorers who had simply dropped everything to assist. This is incredible, Ambassador Quilin whispered, as she watched the growing fleet of rescue ships. How many humans are coming? Hard to say, Rodriguez replied. When humans hear a distress call, we tend to respond. It's just how we're built. Captain HFY watched a battered mining ship dock with the colony vessel. Its crew immediately began transferring medical supplies and offering engineering assistance. These weren't trained rescue personnel. They were ordinary humans who had simply heard that people needed help. Your species fascinates me, he said. You live on a world that constantly tries to kill you. You travel through regions of space that most civilized species avoid. You engage in combat against impossible odds, yet your first instinct is to help strangers. Rodriguez considered this while coordinating the transfer of a group of injured children to the medical bay. I think it's because of our world, not in spite of it. When everything around you is dangerous, you learn to value the people who watch your back. Humans have always survived by helping each other. Engineer Chen's voice came over the communication system. Captain, the colony ship's engines are stable. I've reinforced the hull breaches, and their life support should hold until they reach port. But they're going to need a full refit. Understood. Plot a course for the nearest council facility. We'll escort them in. As the fleet of rescue ships began the journey to safety, the alien delegates found themselves in the Defiant Spirits observation lounge, trying to process what they had experienced. The humans had made it look easy, but the delegates understood they had witnessed something extraordinary. They saved 50,000 lives, Minister Nextar said quietly. A dozen merchants and explorers defeated a pirate fleet that had been terrorizing the sector for years. Ambassador Quilin's energy form pulsed thoughtfully. I need to revise my report to the council. Everything we thought we knew about humans may be wrong. Captain HFY stood at the observation window, watching the damaged colony ship flying safely in their escort formation. What bothers me is how routine this was for them. Captain Rodriguez spoke about a dozen rescue operations this year like she was discussing cargo deliveries. Dr. Tanaka entered the lounge, still wearing medical scrubs covered in Nexari medical gel. She looked tired but satisfied. The last of the critical patients are stable. Giuseppe is cooking for about 300 extra people now, but he seems to be enjoying the challenge. Dr. Tanaka, Ambassador Quilin said, May I ask you something personal? You're scientists and merchants, not soldiers. Why do you risk your lives for people you've never met? Tanaka sat down heavily in one of the human-sized chairs. That's a good question, I guess. Humans have a saying, there but for the grace of God go I. It means that could be us out there, stranded and afraid. Wouldn't we want someone to help? She looked out at the colony ship filled with families who had almost lost everything. Besides, what's the point of having the ability to help if you don't use it? Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the ship's communication system. All hands, this is the captain. We'll be arriving at Starport Vega in 18 hours. The Nexari government has prepared medical facilities for our passengers. Well done, everyone. As the humans went about their duties, the alien delegates realized they needed to completely reconsider their understanding of this species. They had expected to encounter violent barbarians from a death world. Instead, they found people who had been shaped by a hostile environment into something remarkable. They're not dangerous because they're aggressive, Captain HFY said slowly. They're dangerous because they're competent. They've evolved on a world so hostile that survival required constant adaptation and cooperation. Minister Nextar nodded. And now they apply those same survival instincts to helping others. They see a problem that needs solving, and they solve it regardless of personal risk. The galaxy needs to know about this, Ambassador Quillen said. Not the stories about human aggression, but the truth. They're natural problem solvers who refuse to accept that some situations are hopeless. 3 days later, the rescue fleet arrived at Starport Vega to a hero's welcome. The Nexari government had declared a system-wide holiday to honor their rescuers. News agencies from across the galaxy had gathered to interview the humans who had defeated the notorious Korthak raiders. Captain Rodriguez seemed uncomfortable with all the attention. When asked why she had risked her life for strangers, she gave the same answer she had given the alien delegates. Someone needed help. What else were we supposed to do? The interview was broadcast across the galaxy, along with footage of the rescue operation. For the first time, many species saw humans not as dangerous barbarians, but as the kind of people who flew into impossible situations because it was the right thing to do. The alien delegates returned to their repaired ship with a new understanding. They had experienced firsthand why humans were both feared and respected throughout the galaxy. It wasn't because they were violent or cruel. It was because they were the kind of species that responded to distress calls. As the Serene Harmony departed Starport Vega, Captain Zethai found himself looking forward to his report to the Galactic Council. For the first time in his diplomatic career, he had truly good news to share. Humanity had joined the galactic community, and the universe was a safer place because of it. In the observation lounge of the Defiant Spirit, Captain Rodriguez was already plotting their next course. The Outer Rim had plenty of people who might need help, and 12 humans in a patched-up merchant ship were ready to answer the call. After all, that's what civilized people do.